Okay, this tutorial is going to show how to create an iOS app to hide the keyboard using a scroll view. First thing you want to do is create a brand new Swift project, single view, iPhone only. We're going to call it HideKeyboard. We'll save it to the desktop. Want to make sure it is iPhone only. So change it from universal to iPhone. Uncheck landscape left and right. I just want to be portrait only. Click on main.storyboard. We're going to put a label here in the top middle. I'm going to call it contacts. So put it up there, label, go over here to the property, and click away, and then click back in here to drag it into the center. Then we're going to create 3 text fields. Add 3 text fields. All 395 width, and we'll put them one on top of the other. If you add one and then do a Control-D command like it says here in C, it'll allow you to, or Command-D will allow you to duplicate that object. And then we're going to put some placeholders in those 3 objects, first name, last name, email. So a UI text field, 195, duplicate it with Command-D, and then stack them on top of one another and center them. And let's call it first name, last name, email. And where you're going to go get the width over here is in the show size inspector. We'll want it 195. And we'll center that one in there to where the blue line shows up there. Then I'm doing a Command-D twice. Duplicated that object. Then I'm bringing in the second one right below it. And third one right below. When you bring them in, you'll actually feel it kind of snap in there and center. And going back to the property inspector, I want the placeholder here to be first name, and then last name, and then email. Next, we're going to add 2 buttons, a View Contacts button and a Save button. The first button is going to be the View Contacts. We want it to be whatever the width of the text is, and we'll drag it to the left here. Same thing with the Save, whatever the width of the text is, and drag it to the right. So View Contacts for the title. I'm going to go ahead and just do a Command-D on that one. Bring it over here. And type in Save. Click away and then come back. There we go. Next, we're going to select all but the top label, and we're going to do an embed in the scroll view to add a scroll view, which is going to allow us, when we click on each one of the fields, it'll put the scroll view at the top. So select all the objects here, except for my contacts. You can do it by doing the selecting all of them with your mouse, or you can do a command click and select them all. So I can select them all with my mouse this way, or I can do a command click and click each one individually, however you want to do it. I go to Editor, Embed in Scroll View. I'm going to take this scroll view now and drag it down a little bit below contacts. There we go. Now we have our scroll view. We're going to size our scroll view accordingly. We're going to basically allow it to, folks will enter in first name, last name, email, hit save, it'll go to the very bottom of the scroll view, which you won't see on the page. And so what we need to do is make the height much longer than the height of the phone. So we'll do, we're using iPhone 8, so we'll do a 343 width and 1120 height, and then center it. So select the scroll view, go to the size inspector, width 343, and height we're doing 1120. And then we're going to click away and then come back in there and center it and then into that page there. There we go. And you know it's centered when you have the guide show up vertically there. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to center these objects that are in here. You're going to have to do a command click away, and then do a command click on each object. Then you can click any one of the objects and center it now in the middle. There we go. Good. Now we're going to go to the very bottom of the scroll view and add two more objects. We're going to add in a scroll view, we're adding a UI text view and a button. A UI text view and a button. The UI text view is going to be 216 by 200, and the button is going to be right above it. The way to do this is, again, click away from the view over here. Just click anywhere and then click back in here, and you'll see it highlighted it. Click and drag up on that scroll view until it get to the very bottom here. And now we're at the very bottom of the scroll view. We need to add a view, a UI text view. And a button. We want the width to be 216 and the height to be 200. We're going to take this and center it at the bottom. There we go. Take this button and bring it down. And we're going to call that button back on the property for the title. This text that's in here right now, we're going to select the view and go over here to the text property here in the property and do a Command A. It'll select everything and then delete. And then click away somewhere, and then you should just have leftover, which would be that text view with no text in it. Next, we've got to do is we've got to create some outlets and actions. The button's going to be an action, and the outlet is going to be the text view. The button's going to be called BTN back. We're going to create an action and an outlet both. When you create an action, so it'll go back to the top. We're going to create an outlet, so when we're at the top, it's going to be able to go back to that button location at the bottom. And then UI text view is going to be called text view. So BTN back, action outlet, and TXT view. So click on the button. Let's go to the assistant editor. And we're going to go here to the very top. I'm going to hide this outline view. All right, I want this button right above the view did load, BTN back. And we'll make this the action. So I'll usually put my outlets at the top of my code, and then right below it, the actions, and below the actions, any other code that might be there. So make sure and select type UI button. So BTN back UI button, connect. We're going to put another control click drag for an outlet, same name, BTN back. And above that, TXT view, click and drag. Great. Okay, now that we've done that, we're now ready to go to the very top of the scroll view again and make some more actions and outlets. I want to go back to the standard editor first, which is right here where my mouse is hovering on the upper right corner of your screen. Click on the scroll view and drag down. You might have to click away and drag down again. There we go, to where it's centered. Perfect. Now we're going to create actions and outlets here. So there's going to be outlet, 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 action, action. The names are going to be scroll view first, which is this here, scroll view. It'll be called scroll view. Then TXT first, TXT last, TXT email, BTN save, and BTN view. So we'll start with the view first, selecting the view, go to the assistant editor, put a comment here at the top of my code. I'm going to put outlets. And click and drag this over there, right below that. And this is going to be called scroll view. And TXT first, TXT last, TXT email, BTN save, BTN view. Action, BTN view, UI button, and connect. And the last action, right below that. Change the outlet to action, BTN save, UI button, click connect. Then yours should look something like mine. You should have some outlets here at the top, scroll view, TXT first, TXT last, TXT email, BTN view, action, BTN save action. These outlets here for text view and BTN back, I'm going to move these to the top so all my actions or my outlets are together. I have my outlets, I have my actions. I'm going to put my cursor at the end of each one of my outlet rows and just hit enter so I can enter my code later. Then the existing code, which is in here, which is the view did load and the did receive memory warning. Next, we're going to put in some code. This code for step link is going to take you to go back to look at it. And let me copy that to make sure I've got that in the other one. And this is just the code from the view did load, by the way. Okay, there it is. All right, so we have this up to this point. We have in our code the class UI view controller, the outlets, and the actions created. The already existing view did load and did receive memory warning. So in here, you'll notice the comment for number 1 doesn't start till after your actions comment. We've already have these created. Next on the BTM back is a first we need to complete, which is basically going to go back to the top of the code. So what I'm doing this is just highlight the code in between the BTM back, left and right bracket. Here's the left bracket. Here's the right bracket. Just comment the code in that. Come back in here and go to my BTM back. And don't worry about errors yet till you get this completed. Then the save function is going to call a dismiss keyboard function that we've not put in yet. Go down to the bottom and save what the users put at the top. So I want the code from the add below, the HideKeyboard, basically line 40, all the way down to the right before the right bracket. And that's the save logic. Next is the BTN view. From HideKeyboard down to right before the right bracket of BTN view. Don't worry about errors yet. These will be taken care of. So right in here. Then the message box, we're going to add in the create alert. I'm going to put this right above my view did load. And the touch functions are so the user can, when they touch away from the screen or from the text box, the keyboard will disappear. So numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all we can bring in, which is basically for the hiding keyboard functionality. I'm going to put that right below the message, function message. And then number 12 was the function inside that's already in there, which is if you did load, we're going to put in the code starting for looks for single or multiple taps down to the text dot become first responder. Don't worry about any warnings like UI alert view. We're supposed to use that even though the Swift has a new version for that. We're going to use the old one. All right, so we're looking good here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the code there for the standard editor. Next, what we need to do, we'll go back to the document for the PDF. And I'll go over the line by line here in a second. All right, so we added in the code for 15. Next, we need to add some delegates. In order for the delegates to work for the keyboard hide, all 3 of these fields, the first name, last name, and email, need to have a delegate added to them. And so the way you're going to do it basically is, like I said, your main storyboard, view controller from the outline view, and then connection inspector. You're going to click and drag from the delegate referencing options to each one of them and select delegate. So click and drag from the outlets into the text box, release delegate. So basically, the easiest way to do it is click on this view controller here, go to the right option, which is inspector, show connection inspector. Right here is the one I'm referring to, the reference outlet. You click and drag it into each one and select delegate, just a text view. So I got first name, now last name, now finally email. Without that, the keyboard click away will not work, will not hide. Next, we need to align things. So again, select the view controller, and then let's do the reset to suggested constraints like we've been doing. So view controller is selected still, editor, resolve auto layout issues, reset to suggested constraints. And now I'm gonna go ahead and run it. As soon as it loads, it should go to the very first text box, which is the first name. If the keyboard does not show up when it goes to that first text box, you can do a Command K keyboard command once it shows up, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. So you'll notice how my keyboard shows up. When I click away, the keyboard goes away. And that's the functionality of the HideKeyboard. So I'll go ahead and put in here my first name, last name, email. And you'll see the keyboard's gone. If I do a Command K, it'll come back. Click away, go away. If I hit save, it's going to go down to the bottom of that view. Go back, it's going back to the top and clear. I'll put in another one. Command K to make sure the keyboard pops up there. Click away to make sure that's working. So you should be able to click in each field and click away and it go away. Save contacts again. There's a second one added. So if I want just to view all contacts, there we go. So it is working and functioning. So let's go over the code here real quick as far as what it's doing behind the scenes. So first of all, let's go to the view did load, which is the beginning of every app. When it goes to the view controller, let's go to view did load. First thing we're going to do is in the view did load is we're going to look for single or multiple taps. And so in order to do that, we have to use what's called a UI tap gesture recognizer. And I created a variable called tap equals UI tap gesture recognizer, target self, meaning the form itself, the view itself, action, selecting a dismissed keyboard, which we'll look at in a second. Then that scroll view is going to be added to that gesture, is going to be added to the scroll view. So every time you tap the scroll view, which remember is the everything in this app outside of the objects is a scroll view. So anywhere that a scroll view is tapped, it's going to dismiss the keyboard. Then the next part here defines the current device that you're on and puts it in a size variable. Next, it determines in that scroll view frame, from the 0 location at the top, 50 from the left, the width of the scroll view and the height of the scroll view, it's going to go to the very top every time. But this first run, it's going to go to the very top and then go to the text first responder. So if I go back to the simulator and go back to home, click on that, it's going to go right back into that first name when it first runs. I think I'll do it again. I'll just start it this way that we can see it. So you'll notice it goes right to that first name. That is what's happening here. Okay. Next, let's talk about the actual text fields, which are these fields here that we did the delegate on. These three fields, I have to have a delegate that we remember we had to do. So where that's happening here is in the, well, before we do that, let's go to the dismiss keyboard. And the dismiss keyboard, all it's doing is if a keyboard's showing from those text fields, it's going to dismiss it with this end editing option. So in here we have text field function, text field function, text field function, text field function. So actually the first two are text field function. So this one here is if the text, the function is for the, if the UI text field is clicked away, it's going to resign that text field. Here, if they click on a text field, it's going to go to that exact point, wherever they're clicked on, in the view, and go to that area. So, example is if I click on this bottom one, here, and I have that all the way at the top, so you can see all three of them each time. So it's already up to the 0 location. We go to the save and come back. It's always going to go to the very top of my view, which it is already, to the very top of the view. So when you begin editing, it gets focused again, takes it to that scroll view to the very top of where it's located at. Same thing with the view editor at the bottom, but there's already editing done on that one. What that means is put some text in here. I'm going to go down to the bottom here. This is just a view. There's no really, can't really do any editing in this one. If we go back, it's going to go back to the very top again. Okay. Next, so that's what these text fields are doing on 7, 8, 9, and 10 is setting the focus and then offsetting the scroll point to that focus. Going back to the very top, the BTN view, which is this one right here, it's going to go to the location where the button is located, the BTN back button is located, and then set the scroll to that point. The save button is going to first check, dismiss the keyboard, then it's going to first check if anything is empty, it won't allow it to enter. Notice it says all fields are required. So that's where that message box is coming up. And the MSG box is we'll look at in a second. Else, if that's true, meaning all these have something in it, then it's going to check to see if the text view is empty, meaning the very first time. If it's empty, it's going to have my contacts at the top. So if we go now to the, there it does have something in it. If we were to run this again, notice there's no my contacts yet. But if I go to add something here, my contacts have been added along with first name, last name, and email. So the first time around, it's going to get the contents of text view, which is going to be my contacts, new line here, then first new line, then first name, then new line, then last name, then new line, then email. Clear out the top 3 text fields, the top, scroll point again, This time back to the BTM back. And then it's going to go to the BTM back at the bottom when it's done. The BTM back sets a scroll point to the animation of 0, meaning all the way to the very top. So scroll point 0 is at the very top. Message box, all it does is bring in the message, whatever's in that string. In this case here, it's always going to be, if they don't enter a text at the top, in the top 3 fields, all fields are required. So that concludes the Dismiss keyboard and functionality of the Dismiss keyboard app, which is basically used in every app when you have to dismiss a keyboard. Also embedding in a scroll view is also used in a lot of apps as well. And so I suggest doing this over again 2 or 3 times on your own, following the steps in the tutorial along with the podcast. Happy coding.